Greetings to everyone. Welcome back once again to my educational channel on biology. I'm teacher Janet. Today we'll be discussing Biology Form 5 topic, Chapter 5, and the topic is 5.1, Types of Plant Responses. So do plants respond to stimuli, which are changes in the environment? Yes, they do, as they are living organisms. So they respond to stimuli just like animals and humans do. However, their responses are slower as they don't have a nervous system. Now, for example, an example of plant response is that the roots of a plant always grow downwards in the direction of gravity, and this is called geotropism. In Thermo-nasty, tulips open when the temperature increases and they close when the temperature decreases. And this plant here is the Mimosa pudica plant, or pokok semalu. Sometimes they call it the touch me not or shy plant. So when someone touches the leaves, they will close, right? They'll fold up because the touch is like a shock to them, and this is the stimulus that causes the leaves to fold up. This is an example of Seismo-nasty, which is a type of plant response. Let's find out more. The learning standards for today's lesson are as follows. After this lesson, we should be able to describe types of plant responses. Number 1, tropism, and number 2, nastic responses. So these two are plant responses. So for tropism, we will discuss 5 examples of tropism, and then we also discuss 5 examples of nastic responses. For example, in hydrotropism, plant roots grow towards soil that is wet and that has water. Parts of the soil that have water, in order to absorb the water for the plant's use. And then we have this strange looking plant here, which is actually called the Venus flytrap. So it has leaves that have been modified. Okay, the structure of the leaf is changed to form the traps, right? Then if insects were to crawl into the trap, they will then cause some movement in the trap here they may touch the hairs here, and this will trigger a response from the plant and the trap will snap shut like this. So how does this response occur? Now, what is the name for this response? Right, let's find out more. (5.1) Types of plant responses. Responding to stimuli is a characteristic of living organisms to ensure survival. Now, what's the importance of responding to stimuli or changes in the environment for plants? By responding to stimuli, plants can adapt or adjust to their surroundings to ensure their survival. Now, plant responses help plants to obtain water, minerals, and sunlight for food production and growth. For example, why do shoots grow towards the sunlight or light? That's because it will help them to absorb more sunlight, which is needed for the process of photosynthesis, so that they can carry out faster photosynthesis and produce more organic food substances for their own growth and development, right? So this type of plant response is called phototropism. Plant responses also help plants to obtain protection from environmental threats. For example, Mimosa pudica plant, when it is touched, the leaves will fold up. So this is a way to sort of protect the leaves from damage. Now, some responses of plants to stimuli are growth responses, while other responses are not growth responses. So for Venus flytrap, the response shown, that's called THIGMONASTY, when it closes its trap. Okay, if there are insects inside the trap, it will close its trap. This type of response will help it to obtain certain minerals. After it digests its prey, after it digests the insects, it will get certain minerals like nitrogen, or certain nutrients like nitrogen for its own growth. So let's discuss the two main types of plant responses, namely tropism and nastic response. Now, what is tropism? Tropism is a growth response of a certain plant part, like the shoot or root, okay, that grows either towards or away from a stimulus such as light or water. And the response is dependent on the direction of the stimulus. So a growth response, it means that as the plant is growing, it is also responding at the same time. Okay, for example, shoots grow towards sunlight or light. So as it grows, this is responding to the stimulus of light. Now, it can grow. The plant part can either grow towards the stimulus or away from the stimulus. For example, roots will grow away from light, probably to protect. It's a protective response that prevents the roots from drying up, right? So roots grow away from light, whereas shoots grow towards the light. So the response is dependent on the direction of the stimulus. If the light comes from the left-hand side, the shoot will grow towards the left. But if the light comes from the right-hand side, the shoot will slowly turn or bend as it grows, and it will turn to the right, right? So what are some examples of tropism? Now, in phototropism, the stimulus is light. So shoots grow towards light, whereas roots grow away from light. In hydrotropism, the stimulus is water. Roots grow towards water. And then in geotropism, the stimulus is gravity. Roots will grow towards gravity, in the direction of gravity, right? As the same as the direction of gravity. So they grow downwards. In THIGMOTROPISM, the stimulus is touch. Tendrils grow and coil around objects that they touch. So tendrils are long, thin extensions which grow from the stem, and they are like modified leaves. Some of them modified leaves, and they grow. Then when they touch an object, they will grow and coil around that object to obtain support for the plant. So that's thigmotropism. How about nastic responses? Now, nastic responses are different from tropism because this response is a non-directional response of a plant part to a stimulus like light or touch. The response is independent of the direction of stimulus, and it may or may not involve growth. So it's a non-directional response. That means the response occurs not in any particular or fixed direction. For example, Japanese roses open when there is higher light intensity in the morning, when it's bright. Okay, so they don't open in a particular direction that depends on the stimulus. So it's a non-directional response, and the response is independent of direction of stimulus, unlike tropism, where the response is dependent on the direction of the stimulus. So another point to note is that nastic response may or may not involve growth. Some nastic responses occur because of changes in the turgor pressure of cells, which we'll discuss in a short while. Okay? Whereas in tropism, there's always growth involved. All right? So we have examples of nastic responses. In photonasty, light is the stimulus. So Japanese rose opens when light intensity is high in the morning and closes when light intensity is lower in the evening. Okay? This plant may be, sometimes are planted in schools also. So you just observe it. In the morning and evening, they have different response. In Seismo-nasty, Mimosa pudica leaves will fold up when they are touched. And in THIGMONASTY, the Venus flytrap closes its leaves or its trap when there is vibration. We'll find out more of how these responses occur in a short while. Now, in this second overview, we are going to discuss 5 examples of tropism and 5 examples of nastic responses. The 5 examples of tropism are phototropism by roots and shoots, hydrotropism by roots, geotropism by roots and shoots, thigmotropism by tendrils, chemotropism by roots and by the pollen tube that grows from the pollen grain. Now, this is an extra one, the pollen tube. It's not in the textbook. Now, 5 examples of nastic responses are photonasty by the Japanese rose, a flower, it's a flower, Seismo-nasty by Mimosa pudica leaves, Nyctinasty by legume plant leaves, Thermo-nasty by tulip flowers, which are flowers, THIGMONASTY by the Venus flytrap, which are actually modified leaves. So here we can observe something. For tropism, usually involves the roots and the shoots, and also tendrils, all right, for THIGMOTROPISM. But for these nastic responses that we are discussing, it involves mainly the flowers, the petals of flowers, or the leaves. All right, so if you come across any question where they ask, whether it's a nastic response or tropism, if it involves the roots and shoots, it's mainly tropism. It's usually or probably tropism. Okay, and it involves the flowers or leaves, it could be most likely a nastic response, right? Except for the sunflower, which I will discuss in a short while. So that's a fun fact. The sunflower actually carries out phototropism because there's growth involved. As it turns and faces the sun, the flower will follow the movement of the sun in the sky, right? That we'll discuss in a short while. It's a fun fact. It's not in the textbook. But for most of the flowers here, as you can see here, that is mentioned, okay, they carry out the nastic responses by opening or closing according to different stimuli. Now, after that, we're going to compare these two types of plant responses, tropism and nastic response. Now let us describe the types of plant responses which are tropism. Let's describe tropism, and we'll look at 5 types of tropism, which are phototropism, hydrotropism, geotropism, thigmotropism, and chemotropism. So firstly, we have to know the definition for tropism. Tropism is a response made by a certain plant part, okay, a certain part of a plant, such as the root or shoot, that responds by growing, okay, must mention the word growing, towards or away from a stimulus, such as water, gravity, or light. Okay, so only a part of the plant is responding, and it either grows towards or away from the stimulus. That is tropism. So the types of tropism that we're going to discuss is phototropism, hydrotropism, geotropism, thigmotropism, and chemotropism. All right. Now, a fun fact: we know that flowers of the sunflower always follows the sun from east to west, especially the young sunflower plant. Okay, the flower will always face the sun. Okay, so actually this is a type of phototropism because firstly it's phototropism because the stimulus is light. Secondly, it's a type of tropism. It involves growth. When the flower is turning from east to west in the daytime, it's because of the different rates of growth of the stem, okay, where the flower is attached. The different rates of growth of two sides of the stem here will cause the stem to bend in one direction, and that leads to the turning of the flower to face the light. Okay. Anyway, this is not in our it's not mentioned in the textbook, but it's a type of tropism. Okay, just a fun fact. Here is a useful picture that shows the 5 types of tropism, or 5 examples of tropism, okay, in one picture. So number 1, in phototropism, the shoot grows towards the light. Number 2, in chemotropism, the root grows towards minerals or nutrients that it can absorb and that is helpful or beneficial to it for growth and development. In number 3, geotropism, the roots grow downwards towards the direction of gravity, and that is usually to help it to be able to obtain more water, right, for the plant. Now, in hydrotropism, roots grow towards water sources, okay, or towards the part of the ground that is damp or moist compared to other parts. Now, in thigmotropism, the tendrils grow towards objects that are touched in order to obtain support for the plant. Now let's talk about the 5 types of tropism. So here are a series of smart notes for you, and these notes have been organized so that it's easy for you to understand the topic and also to memorize it. All right. So try and use these notes as they are effective in helping you to learn biology and to remember the facts. So I've divided the facts into 5 parts: the type of tropism, the stimulus involved, definition of the type of tropism, examples, and then the pictures. Now let's start with phototropism. The stimulus is light. So the definition for phototropism is that it is the growth or movement of a plant part in response to light. Now examples are shoots that show positive phototropism because they grow towards the light, and roots show negative phototropism because they grow away from light, right? So the advantage of the plant growing towards light is that the plant will be able to absorb more sunlight for a faster rate of photosynthesis to produce more organic food substances for its own use. All right. Now, how about hydrotropism? In hydrotropism, the stimulus is water. See, the word hydro here means water, right? Whereas the word photo here means something to do with light. So in hydrotropism, the stimulus is water, and hydrotropism is the growth or movement of a plant part in response to water. So roots show positive hydrotropism because they grow towards water. Now, for example, in this experiment, if we grow a bean plant or any plant in one corner of a container which contains dry soil, and then we put a porous pot on the other side, on the left side, right? The plant is grown on the right side and the porous pot is on the left side. So this pot is filled with water, but it's a porous pot, so water can seep out of this pot, okay, can come out from this pot, and so it will wet the soil in this area here on the left. So if you leave the plant to grow, after a week or so, if you were to dig out the roots, we'll find that the roots have grown and bent and grown towards the water in the soil, okay, towards the porous pot. So roots show positive hydrotropism because they grow towards water. So the reason is obvious. It is to obtain more water so that the roots can absorb more water for the use of the plant. For example, water is needed for the process of photosynthesis and also for the transport of mineral salts in the plant. Next, there is geotropism. Number 3, geotropism. The stimulus is gravity. Now, geotropism is defined as the growth or movement of a plant part in response to gravity. So, roots show positive geotropism. Okay, this is an example of geotropism. Roots show positive geotropism because they always grow towards gravity. So gravity acts downwards and the roots grow downwards too. All right. So maybe this will help them to find more water in the soil as they grow downwards. Now, shoots, on the other hand, show negative geotropism because they always grow away from gravity. They grow upwards. All right. Maybe that's to obtain more sunlight, to absorb more sunlight because it's high up. Okay. So this is the example of geotropism shown by roots and shoots. Next, we have THIGMOTROPISM. In THIGMOTROPISM, the stimulus is touch. Okay, it's very easy to remember. Think of T's. THIGMOTROPISM, stimulus is T, touch. T for touch. Okay, and then the plant part involved is also T, tendrils. All right, so this is a memory aid. THIGMOTROPISM. In THIGMOTROPISM, the stimulus is touch, and the plant part involved is tendrils. Are the tendrils that respond to touch. So THIGMOTROPISM is the growth of movement of a plant part in response to touch. T. Okay, THIGMOTROPISM, touch, and tendrils. And tendrils exhibit positive THIGMOTROPISM by coiling around an object such as a pole for support, as we can see here. Right? So the tendril may be a modified leaf, and whenever it touches some object, it will try to coil around it. It will grow around it as coil is actually growing, but it grows around it, and that is to gain support for the plant. Okay, so grapes also have tendrils, right, to help them climb up some kind of framework, right? And so tendrils are found in plants that have very weak stems. So the tendrils help them to get support from objects around them. Okay, right. So next, let's go on to the last example. of tropism. The last example of tropism is chemotropism. The stimulus is chemicals. Okay, chemo is related to chemicals. So chemotropism is the growth or movement of a plant part in response to chemicals, such as fertilizers and poisons also in the soil. So this response is shown by roots of a plant. Roots show positive chemotropism when they grow towards mineral salts in the ground. So these mineral salts are the nutrients for the plant, and it may come from the fertilizers that are put into the soil. So the roots will grow towards them in order to absorb this, to obtain these mineral salts for growth and development of the plant. On the other hand, roots can also show negative chemotropism when they grow away. They grow away from chemicals which are poisons, which are poisonous to the plant. So in order to avoid themselves from absorbing the poisons, right, the roots will not grow towards the poisons, but they'll grow away from the poisons. So there is a protective effect there. Right, so these are the 5 types of tropism with their examples and the definitions. Now here's an extra fact. Another example of chemotropism is the growth of the pollen tube towards the ovule. Okay, so this is due to positive chemotropism. Now when the pollen grain lands on the stigma of a flower, it will start to grow a pollen tube. Okay, this is the germination of the pollen grain. So as it grows the pollen tube will grow downwards in the direction of the ovules, which contain the female gamete called the egg cell. Now, how does the pollen tube know how to grow downwards to the ovules? So this is because the ovule in the ovary here secretes chemicals as a stimulus to attract this pollen tube. Then the pollen tube grows downwards because it grows towards the chemicals as a response that is due to positive chemotropism. And then it will grow down the style here, this part here. So from pollen grain, the tube grows down the style to the egg cell in the ovule for fertilization to occur between the male gamete. The male gamete is in the pollen tube. So as the pollen tube grows downwards, the male gamete from the pollen will also grow down. Okay, the male gamete is actually like a nucleus like that, male nucleus or male gamete. So when it reaches the ovule here, it will carry out fertilization. All right, it will fertilize the egg cell. But the growth of the pollen tube is due to positive chemotropism. So here are 5 characteristics of tropism as discussed in the textbook that we have to know. Firstly, in tropism, the response is permanent because it involves growth. Once the plant has grown, it's not going to shrink back or become young again, right? So it grows, and that response is permanent and is influenced by plant hormones such as auxins, which we will be learning later on, all right, in the textbook. Now, the response is slow and not apparent. So because it involves growth, the response is slow. Growth takes a while to occur. And it's not apparent, meaning it's not so obvious. If you just watch it, within a few minutes, you don't see any response. But over a few days or a week, you will see that the plant has responded. For example, the shoot has grown towards the light, or the roots have grown downwards in the direction of gravity, right? Now, the direction of the response is dependent on the direction of the stimulus. As we say here, roots will grow in the direction of gravity. So gravity acts downwards, so the roots grow downwards. Whereas shoots will grow away from the direction of gravity. All right, so the direction of response is depends on where the stimulus comes from. Now, in positive phototropism, growth occurs towards the direction of the stimulus. So roots show positive geotropism because they grow towards the direction of, or in the direction of gravity. So this is called positive geotropism. Now, in negative geotropism, the growth occurs away from the stimulus. For example, shoots are show negative geotropism. Okay, shoots show negative geotropism in that the shoots always grow away from the direction of gravity. Right, we have already discussed tropism. Now let's go on to the second type of plant response, which is the Nastic response. So we're going to discuss also 5 examples of the Nastic response. Right, Nastic responses. Introduction. What is the definition? A Nastic response is a plant response which involves movement of a plant part in response to environmental stimuli like light and touch, and the movement of the plant part is not dependent on the direction of the stimulus. Alright, unlike tropism, where the movement of the plant part is dependent on the direction of the stimulus. Then movement is due to changes in turgor pressure or changes in growth. Whereas for tropism, the movement is caused by growth only. Now, examples. Venus flytrap shuts when an insect causes vibration of the leaf. So vibration is the stimulus, and then the Venus flytrap responds by shutting the leaves in the trap. Okay, like this. Now for Mimosa pudica leaf. The Mimosa pudica leaf will fold up when it is touched. Okay, so the stimulus here is shock or touch, or mechanical, is a mechanical stimulus, and this causes the mimosa leaf to fold up, sort of close up, and it is due to changes in turgor pressure, as we will find out later. Types of Nastic responses: Photonasty, SEISMONASTY, Nyctinasty, Thermo-nasty, and THIGMONASTY. Now, what are some characteristics of Nastic responses? Nastic responses are caused by changes in turgor pressure, and some of them are changes in turgor pressure of the cells, all right, around the, for example, around the leaf stalk there, and some are growth responses. Now, most of the ones discussed here involve changes in turgor pressure. Most of the Nastic responses that we're going to discuss, okay, involve changes in turgor pressure, and this response is quicker and more apparent compared to tropism response. So it's more obvious because it occurs more quickly, such as the closing of the Venus flytrap. Some Nastic responses are intended for survival and for defense. For example, the folding up of the Mimosa pudica leaves when touched. Movement of plant part is not dependent on direction of stimulus. As we said, for example, when the Venus flytrap closes, this does not depend on where the stimulus comes from, as long as the hairs here are stimulated by vibration. So we'll find out more as we go along. The first type of Nastic response is photonasty. The stimulus is light. As we can see from the word photo here, means something to do with light. So photonasty is defined as a non-directional movement of a plant part in response to changes in light intensity. And it usually involves the flower petals, like the flower petals of the Japanese rose. All right. So they can respond to changes in light intensity. For example, the Japanese rose will open in the morning when it receives a lot of sunlight and when the day is getting brighter. And it will close at night like this when the light intensity decreases. All right. So that is photonasty, and it involves the flower petals of the Japanese rose. So notice here that no growth is involved. All right, for Nastic responses. The second example of a Nastic response is Seismo-nasty. The word seismo here means shock, or a shaking, or an earthquake. So the stimulus in this case is a mechanical stimulus such as shock, touch, the blowing of the wind, and raindrops falling on the leaves. So Seismo-nasty is a non-directional movement of a plant part in response to a mechanical stimulus, such as touch. And it can be seen, this response can be seen in the leaves of certain plants, in the stigma and stamens of certain flowers. So let's take the example of the plant called Mimosa pudica or pokok semalu. Sometimes we call it the shy plant or the touch-me-not, right? Plant, the touch-me-not plant. So we have to know the scientific name, Mimosa pudica plant. Now when it is touched, its leaves will move and fold up due to changes in turgor pressure of the cells caused by touch. So let's see. Now when you touch the leaves of the Mimosa pudica plant, that is a type of stimulus already. Okay, and then Seismo-nasty will occur whereby the leaves will fold up together, like close up. All right, like this. Right. So this is due to changes in turgor pressure of the cells that are found at the leaf stalk, at the bottom of the leaves here. All right. So we are going to find out more and about how the changes in turgor pressure occur, and this is just some extra information for you. The basic thing is that we have to know that the plant leaves fold up caused by changes in turgor pressure. All right. Now here's some advanced information. How does Seismo-nasty actually occur? Now we know that in Seismo-nasty, when the Mimosa pudica leaves are touched, they will close like this. So actually, what happens? Now, this is up to you whether you want to study it, right? But it's good information because it will help you to understand that Seismo-nasty is caused by changes in turgor pressure of the cells, all right, at the base of the leaves here. So what happens is that the leaflets, all right, this is a cross section of the leaves that are opened. When they are opened, you can see that there's a stem here with a vascular tissue inside to transport water and other substances. And then the leaflets here, at the base of the leaflets, these are the important parts. The base of the leaflets are swollen, and the groups of cells here are called pulvinus. The whole thing is called the pulvinus, okay, the swollen base. It consists of cells A above and cells B below. They are parenchymal cells. Now when the leaflets are open, both these groups of cells, cells A above and cells B below, they are actually full of water, all right? And this causes the leaflets to be more or less in a horizontal position. But when the leaflets are touched, something happens, and that causes water to move out of cells A, the blue cells. So there's lower turgor pressure in cells A as water moves out of the cells very quickly, and the cells become flaccid. Okay, they are not so turgid. They don't have so much water in them, so they don't have so much turgor pressure. So they become softer a bit, right? And this gives less support to the plant compared to the cells below here. All right, cells B, they have higher turgor pressure because the water doesn't move out from these cells, does not move out from these cells. So the high turgor pressure is retained in cells B. So the cells are more turgid, and this provides more support to the plant. So overall, a resultant force will be produced that acts in this way, all right? Because the cells B are more turgid than cells A, which have become a bit softer. The tissues have become a bit softer. So it produces a force which moves the leaflets inwards so that they fold up. The third type of nastic response is called Nyctinasty. Now the word nyct here, N-Y-C-T, means night, actually means night. Okay, so in Nyctinasty, the stimulus is the onset of darkness or the arrival of darkness every day, which occurs at about 6 to 7 p.m. in the evening. So it's when night approaches. So Nyctinasty is a non-directional movement of a plant part in response to the onset of darkness, all right, around evening time usually, which causes changes of temperature or light intensity. So when the darkness comes, it causes a decrease in temperature and also decrease in light intensity. So these are the stimuli, all right, the onset of darkness, which causes changes in temperature and light intensity. And this stimulus will cause the legume plants like the river tamarind. Okay, legume plants are bean plants. And the river tamarind is a legume plant that closes its leaves at night. The two leaflets on both sides will sort of fold up, and it will unfurl them during the daytime when there is higher temperature and higher light intensity. All right. So it's like the plant sort of going to sleep within inverted commas, right? It will fold up its leaves, close its leaves at night, and then opens them in the morning. All right. To be able to carry out photosynthesis in the daytime, the leaves have to unfurl, open up. Now, this river tamarind is also called, the scientific name is called Leucaena leucocephala, right? So remember that Nyctinasty, for Nyctinasty, the stimulus is the onset of darkness, all right? And then here, it is stated that Nyctinasty is a circadian rhythm that responds to the onset of darkness. By circadian rhythm, we mean processes, biological processes that occur in a cycle at 24-hour intervals. For example, this response where the leaves close occurs every 24 hours at around 6 to 7 p.m., right? So it is called a circadian rhythm. It occurs repeatedly in a cycle, right? They open at daytime, close near to nighttime, all right? And these processes are often affected by the stimulus of light and darkness, and also by changes in temperature and light intensity. The fourth type of nastic response is called thermo-nasty. The stimulus are changes in temperature. The word thermo means something to do with heat or temperature. So thermo-nasty is the non-directional movement of a plant part in response to changes in the surrounding temperatures. Easy to understand, right? So for tulips are those beautiful plants that grow in Holland and also in cooler places, cooler climates. Now, tulip flowers will open when the temperature increases, and when the temperature decreases, they will close. So probably when they open, this will allow pollination to occur. Insects will be able to pollinate the flowers. Okay, maybe one advantage of opening when the temperature increases and the insects are more active. The fifth type of nastic response is called THIGMONASTY. In THIGMONASTY, the stimulus is vibration. So this is a bit different from SEISMONASTY, where the stimulus is touch, right? SEISMONASTY that's shown by the Mimosa pudica plant, all right? So the stimulus for SEISMONASTY is touch, whereas for THIGMONASTY, the stimulus is vibration. So THIGMONASTY is the non-directional movement of a plant part in response to vibration. So vibration of what? Vibration of the parts of the trap, right? Caused by the insects. Now, carnivorous plants such as the Venus flytrap show this response. So the exerted stimulus and vibration caused by the insect will cause this trap to clamp its leaves shut, that means to close the leaves, to trap the insect inside it, so that the plant can digest the insects, right? So when the insect gets into the trap, it will cause some vibrations to occur that will involve the hairs here that are sensitive to vibrations. So this will cause a process to occur that causes the trap to shut. Now, very briefly, how does THIGMONASTY occur in the Venus flytrap? So in THIGMONASTY, the stimulus are the vibrations. Okay. Now, first of all, if we look at the Venus flytrap, it has a few sensitive trigger hairs on the upper and lower surface of the trap. So when the insect crawls into the trap, okay, the insect crawls into the trap like this. The insects are attracted because the trap will give out a sweet-smelling nectar or liquid. So it makes the area here smell like have a fruity smell, sweet fruity smell. So the insects are attracted to the trap. Then as they enter the trap, they may touch these hairs and cause vibrations of the hairs. So this will trigger the sensitive hairs here, the black hairs here, and it will cause changes to the turgor pressure of the cells surrounding in this trap here. All right, now we do not need to know which part, but anyway, due to turgor changes in turgor pressure of the cells, just like for the pulvinus just now, for the Mimosa pudica plant, so certain parts of the trap there will be some soft tissues that cause the trap to snap shut. All right, so the trap snaps shut or closes, and after that the plant releases digestive enzymes to digest the insect. Right, so let's see the trap here snaps shut like this, and then enzymes are secreted to digest the insects, and then the nitrogen produced, the nutrients produced like nitrogenous compounds can be absorbed by the plant for growth, as it lives usually in the nutrient poor soils that contain less nutrients, right? So it needs this source of nitrogen, which are the insects. So this animation shows you the real Venus flytrap as it closes. See, there's a bee there. Okay, let's repeat to it. The bee gets into the trap and stimulates the trap to close because it may have touched the hairs inside the trap. So the trap will snap shut very quickly. There it goes. Right? Right. So the question here is, compare and contrast tropism and nastic responses in plants. Now this can be asked in the SPM essay section. All right. So we have to know the differences and the similarities between tropism and nastic responses. The similarity is that both are responses of plant parts to external stimuli. Both are responses, right? Now, what are the differences? Firstly, in tropism, the direction of plant movement depends on the direction of the stimulus. For example, if the sun shines in from the left-hand side, shines onto the plant from the left-hand side, then the shoots will grow to the left, right, in the direction of the light, which is the stimulus. For nastic responses, the movement of the plant part does not depend on the direction of the stimulus. For example, if we touch the Mimosa pudica plant leaflets, they will just close, but there is no particular direction, or it is not affected by the direction of the stimulus, which is the touch from the hand. Now, secondly, examples of tropism. Shoots grow towards light, and this is positive phototropism, whereas roots grow away from light in negative phototropism. For nastic responses, examples are as follows. Tulips open when there's an increase in temperature, that's called Thermo-nasty, and in Seismo-nasty, mimosa leaves fold up and close as a response to touch. Next, tropism is a growth movement occurring through cell division, so there's definitely growth involved in tropism. But for nastic responses, it may or may not be a growth movement. All right, so it can either be a growth movement or usually it can be caused by a change in turgor pressure of cells. For example, in the closing of the Venus flytrap and also the folding of the Mimosa pudica leaves. These are all due to changes in turgor pressure. Now, for tropism, tropic movements are relatively slow because it involves growth. Growth occurs slowly. For example, plant shoots grow slowly towards light. For nastic movements, they are relatively quick. For example, the closing of the Venus flytrap, when a fly or any other insect lands in the trap. It's very fast. It just closes very fast. Now, in tropism, the effect is more or less permanent because it is caused by growth, or it involves growth. Most nastic movements are temporary and reversible. After the Venus flytrap has closed, it can open again after some time, all right, in order to trap another insect. Now, tropism occurs in most plants, but nastic responses occurs only in certain species of plants, like what we have discussed just now, okay? For example, Seismo-nasty occurs in Mimosa pudica, and most plants do not show this response. Types of tropism include THIGMOTROPISM, Geotropism, hydrotropism, Phototropism, and Chemotropism. Then types of nastic responses include Photonasty, SEISMONASTY, Nyctinasty, Thermo-nasty, and THIGMONASTY. Next, let us test ourselves. So very quickly, let's answer this question. The first question, state the definition of tropism. Okay, so 2 marks. Now, tropism is the response of certain parts of a plant, such as the shoots or the roots or shoots, that respond by growing towards or away from the stimulus. So the keywords are underlined for you, or they are in red. Response, okay, is a keyword. It's a response of a plant, certain part of plants. And give examples, the parts of the plant like roots or shoots. Respond by growing towards or away from the stimulus. So you must add the word growing, okay? Next, what are the 5 types of tropism? So THIGMOTROPISM, hydrotropism, geotropism, chemotropism, and phototropism. We have to know all these. And the 5 types of nastic response: Photonasty, SEISMONASTY, Thermo-nasty, Nyctinasty, and THIGMONASTY. Number 3, why is hydrotropism important to plants? What is the benefit of hydrotropism? So in hydrotropism, roots will grow towards water, right? So what's the benefit of that? In positive hydrotropism, plant roots grow towards water. This is an example of hydrotropism. So the benefits are that it ensures that roots can absorb the maximum amount of water, 1 mark, and then which is needed for many, water is needed for many processes like photosynthesis, transport of substances, and for cellular reactions in the plant, right? So 1 mark for the example of hydrotropism, and 2 marks for the benefit of hydrotropism, benefits of hydrotropism. Lastly, for this one, when a candle flame is held near a Mimosa pudica plant, the leaves will fold up. Explain your observation. All right. So now this is a different case. The stimulus is different really. Okay. When the candle flame is held near the Mimosa plant, the stimulus is heat, right? So the Mimosa plant shows Thermo-nasty, which is a response to the stimulus of heat from the candle flame. And it folds up its leaves to protect the leaves from being burnt by the flame. So the Mimosa pudica plant in this example shows Thermo-nasty, other than carrying out SEISMO-nasty, where the stimulus is touch, right? Or raindrops. Okay, but here the Mimosa plant leaves are showing Thermo-nasty. Now there's one more question that I will go through with you. Next question. Finally, let's discuss a forecast essay question. 5A, give an example of THIGMOTROPISM and THIGMONASTY. So let's give an example of each one. Now, positive THIGMOTROPISM is shown by tendrils that coil around an object that they touch in order to get support. However, in THIGMONASTY is different. It is seen in the Venus flytrap. Vibration or touch by insects causes it to clamp its leaves and shut the leaves to trap the insect inside. How about 2 differences between THIGMOTROPISM and THIGMONASTY? So the first difference is that THIGMOTROPISM is caused by growth and coiling of tendrils, the tendrils here, around the object that is touched, right? Growth and coiling of tendrils around the object that is touched. But in THIGMONASTY, the process is caused, the response is caused by changes in turgor pressure, not growth. All right? For example, in the shutting of the leaves of the Venus flytrap. In THIGMOTROPISM, the direction of plant movement depends on the direction of the stimulus. All right, so where the tendrils touch, that's where they will coil around they will grow and coil around the object. But in THIGMONASTY, the movement of the plant part does not depend on the direction of the stimulus. All right, so it will just the trap, Venus flytrap, will just shut and does not depend on where the stimulus comes from, where the vibration comes from. Thirdly, in THIGMOTROPISM, movements are slower, all right, because the tendrils have to grow around the object that they touch. Whereas in THIGMONASTY, the movements are faster when the Venus flytrap closes. It's very fast. Right, that's all for this lesson. I hope that you have learned something from it, and also do take note of the questions that were discussed. Thanks for viewing, and do share, like, and subscribe. Till we meet again, goodbye.